another part of this, right? No matter how flat a pancake is, there's another side to it. So there are excuses for those actions and failures to act, right? And sometimes those excuses are justifiable. There may be temporary conditions that a court considers. For example, I am accusing my spouse of drinking, but I never called, right? I failed to intervene about it. I never called 911 about it, never called the sheriff's department, never sought a custody determination because I worked so many hours and I got my relative involved to help with care providing while the spouse was blotto on alcohol or whatever, right? And so there's a failure there, but it's one that's excusable because I put a different kind of safety plan in place, which didn't involve the state of Texas. And I still loved my spouse. So don't beat me up, Judge, for trying to hang in there through the better, the worse, the sicker, the poor, the sickness and in health and alcoholism, friends, or any kind of addiction. That's a sickness. And conduct, right? A failure to act can be excused. It can be in certain situations. And, the problem is you're burning up time in your temporary orders here and you got 20 minutes each side. Man, it's going to feel like a candle burning on both ends. You got to jam pack your 20 minutes with all the evidence you have. All these factors have to be testified about in that 20 minutes, and that's hard. You got to pick and choose what your bests are, and if you've got to make justifiable excuses for actions or failure to act, you got to do it quick. So what the court's going to be looking for is things to make sure that whatever these conditions are don't reoccur, right? So that's a whole lot. Like, how do you make conditions not reoccur? We're going to be living apart, right? So courts are going to be looking at what the testimony is, what that evidence is, making that decision based on the big picture, right? If there's unsafe, you've got a house full of kids and you leave a bunch of guns lying around, a bunch of dangerous power tools lying around like a table saw, tools in the garage, gasoline, any number of things that just basic stuff like that. Well, that was out in the shed. Yes, but the shed is open and the kids can get in there and there's a table saw that can take off a finger and it's plugged in all the time, has no safety guards on it, right? There's firearms all over the house. Firearms aren't locked up, and there's nothing wrong with Second Amendment rights and there's nothing wrong with a wood shop and this, that, and the other. But, these are gonna be factors, right? Well, why did you fail to be a responsible gun owner when you've got a house full of 4 kids under the age of 10? Why did you fail to be responsible with solvents, fumes, power tools, things that can damage and maim, right? Inhalables, right? That can hurt these kids and they're just lying around. These are things that the court is going to weigh. And it's not every little thing. But police your area, right? Police your area. Make sure that, especially because you're going to be in a position where you're going to have to be throwing rocks at the other side. And it just goes back to that proverb, right? Are you living in a glass house? Because if you're throwing rocks over there to that glass house, I promise you there's going to be rocks coming back this way to your glass house. So make sure that you're squared away, right? Make sure that you're responsible. Make sure that, and if there's some evidence of irresponsibility, it needs to be justified. Any excuses for that, it needs to be justifiable. It just can't be because, well, I believe in my Second Amendment rights, so I have, unchecked firearms lying around the house. That's not going to make a judge feel safe about unsupervised access, even to your own children, even if there's never been a gun incident, because we've all too often seen what can happen when children get access to things like that. And that's just one example. There are others, right? There are many others. So the bottom line is just be careful about the shade you're throwing, and of course be cognizant of the shade that's going to be coming back at you, right? And it is important to think about what excuses or justifications you might have for allegations that you acted or failed to act. But also remember that's going to be just as equal as on the other side. So if there's some allegation that this parent did this wrong, did that wrong, etc., right? They're going to be just as much as you are coming up with justifications for your actions and failure to act, doing the exact same thing. So it's a very fine balance. Again, we're talking about the narrowest of margins, especially if there's an absence of family violence, the narrowest of margins in these decisions. And the worst part about it is the day, the 20 minutes per side you spend at the courthouse bad-mouthing each other is going to be an indelible, unerasable, permanent memory that's really going to fracture, in many cases, the parenting, the ability to be good, decent parents to each other. And it's important to try not to do that, to minimize that, because that's a hard one to sit there. All this bad stuff, well, you never said that while we were together. You never said that while we were together. It's hard to unring that bell once it's occurred, once the court's heard it. Anyhow, please like, subscribe, and share. More to come on this deep dive of Texas family law next in the studio.